What is going on, everybody? And in this video, we're providing you a state of the market and stock picks for November 9th, 2022. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, consider subscribing, as we do provide daily and weekly updates to get you prepared for the day and the week ahead in this glorious market. So what is currently going on? Coming into this week, there are midterms. Today was election day for midterms. It's interesting enough, in a normal cycle, midterms typically have a lot of weight. But in this cycle, you have to understand a lot of the normal moves are very, very diluted from what they normally are. And we saw that. This little pump that we've had here is essentially what I would consider earnings mode and hopium mixed in, because essentially at this bottom, we were talking about quantitative easing with banks, um, and then rolling into Powell, which in monetary policy, which essentially sold us off, only to roll into midterms coming into this week. The midterms could potentially help push the market even further tomorrow. I actually foresee that potentially happening, actually considering that we reclaimed this 3816, although the market doesn't want to budge past essentially that 3900. I think is a pretty strong ceiling, especially since we don't know what's going on with the core. The core is Thursday morning at 3:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that is ultimately what's going to dictate whether this trend continues going up or it goes down. Now, if it does come down outside of the 8 and we start seeing 7s as far as inflation, I think we could get a really big rally out of that. Now, if it stays within 8 or it pops back up, or potentially even seeing over a 9.1, you're just going to essentially see if it's over a 9.1, you're going to see a new lower low on the market. But the key thing to remind yourself when you're at this level is that 3600. If we break a new low, every time we broke a new low, it's being bought up, and that's what is leading me to starting to become a little bit more bullish in a sense, because of the fact that this buying that's occurring around 3600 now. Again, depending on what happens here, if we sell off again after Thursday and we start getting bought up, I would probably almost say that would be a bottom, unless again you have black swans that nothing has occurred yet. You're really playing with fire here, and I'm not just talking about one event. There are many different events, and that we are essentially walking on eggshells, hoping that they don't occur. Now, if that does occur, you could potentially see another 10 to 15% correction on top of what we already have. But it all comes with timing. Something I've always talked about: if these black swan events don't have the correct timing, you're not going to get these bigger falls. And you have to understand that we haven't just fallen, we haven't crashed or flash crashed. It's been a very nasty, grimy grind down and chop essentially almost the whole year. Again, there have been plenty of times where we have hopium and that pushes the market up, only to be dropped again, because of the thesis that we're talking about is still bad. Nothing is getting better. And again, Fed is not going to take action until they know for sure. And you can't be too early on things, because if you're too early on things, you're going to mess up currently what you got standing, and it could get even worse if you continue to ease up when right now it's just not the time to be easing up on rates. So with that being said, the market right here, midterms, again, I think we could pop. I think we could find ourselves again around 3,900 tomorrow. Strong possibility. We'll see what happens tomorrow. But again, Thursday morning, I wouldn't be surprised if we're hovering around here. Again, if we come in at 8 or above, we're headed back down. How far, again, depends on where it's at. If it starts creeping back over 8.5, you better believe it's going to start looking closer at that 39. If it's over 9.1, you better believe we're going to make a new low. Now, if it's in 7s, you got a strong possibility we could pump up a little bit. potentially up to the 4K mark, and then slowly start grinding up. And I think that 4K mark will be pretty fast. Again, you got a higher time frame wedge that you're playing in here, so you got to be mindful of that. We haven't hit that. We broke out of a smaller one. Now we're in this larger time frame one, so we really got to be mindful of that. But again, tomorrow I foresee a pump and then wait for core. And then from that core standpoint, depending on where it comes in, which I'll talk about more tomorrow night, will really dictate where we go from there. One thing that is nice is to see the dollar. If you are aiming for the upside, is to see the dollar break trend here. Hopefully this thing sells off more. Again, you got strong support at the 108. It needs to break essentially the 108 to continue selling. Again, this thing isn't just going to automatically just fall straight to the floor. There was a lot of big supports it's going to bounce off of. So just be mindful of that. And this doesn't indicate any kind of pivot. This is what you have to understand. It is determining a temporary pivot. It's not a full-blown pivot. There's a lot that still needs to occur for this whole thing to be shifted around, and it's not going to be a clean break. You're not going to know for sure, because every move you think is a clean pivot, the news comes out proving you otherwise that it's not. So this is why you have to be very adjustable in this market. So being said, Bitcoin is actually starting to sell off quite a bit, given everything that's been going on with Binance and not just Binance, but what's going on with some of those other cryptos. I can't recall what the name of the other one is right now. I know Binance is involved currently right now, but an FTX are the other ones. And so with that, the whole situation that's going on there, this thing could sell off pretty heavy. So just be mindful of that. Again, there's always that fear in crypto. Whenever you get fear in crypto, this thing starts to sell pretty heavy. So you gotta be careful. It actually hit 16 today. I didn't even notice that that occurred, or that was yesterday. But nonetheless, you have to be mindful of that coming down. Again, this was a hedge, and now if things look better and inflation goes away, you could probably see Bitcoin drop a little bit further, but we have to really be mindful of that. But then again, I think is going to be the cycle of crypto whenever things shake out a little bit better. BA still monster rip. Again, you don't want to see these monster rips with no touchbacks, because that just means this thing's going to gap down and run to the floor. But right now, the current support is the 160 for a nice bounce. So look for that. Again, this can all play out on Thursday. I think if inflation isn't hardly moved, if it's very sticky, I think all this stuff can correct pretty a lot come on Thursday. JPM, ascending wedge. You really have to watch this and be careful. GS is much the same. These parabolic moves are absolutely absurd. And again, what I'm talking about is you don't want this. This is not a pivot. This means this thing's going to come crashing down to at least 50%. If you're looking at 326 from essentially 364. So massive pullback these things are going to have when they do start selling. So just be mindful of that. This is not normal. You don't want stocks to do this, because that just means this thing's going to drop here shortly. But considering all the moves and stuff with the rates and what's going on with those, people are buying banks. People are buying value finances because of that fact. So it's not stopping anybody else from doing it. So we'll see. Oil is still sitting at 88. It's fluctuating between around 85 and 95 roughly. But Bitcoin dying, a dollar dying, might be the turnaround for a lot of different plays. Tesla, I think I can completely miss Tesla here. Tesla looks like it's reversing. And something I've been talking about, if you want to look at institutions, this could potentially be institutional buying right here. It really depends on if Tesla can creep back over the 200. Right here, we actually did hit that monthly support roughly around the 186 here. So we are looking, I'm looking for a bounce. I am in this, I got a small position in this. I was trying to ride this out for the reverse. I think this is very close to a reversal. There's still a lot going on. And again, tech is going to get hit bad whenever you start talking about more rate increases in inflation. So just be mindful of that. If by chance the inflation numbers are good on Thursday, you can guarantee Apple, Tesla, and all them are going to flip and start running like crazy from that point. And then what would probably happen is the banks would probably dial back from that point, and then your tech would take over. And again, they've got a long ways to run because they've been so beaten down. And if you give hope that there is a pivot, again, there's no way of knowing if it's a pivot, but the market will assume it's a pivot. It's going to run, and it's got a lot of room to make up. So just be mindful of that and be ready. And that's why I have a small position in Tesla, just for that. If it sells, it sells. I'm not worried about that position. I'm holding it. I feel that these are good numbers to DCA in whatever you're doing. Again, risk management. I'm not whole accounting any of this stuff. I'm very calculated risk on how much I believe I can put in, how much I can afford that I don't have to look at for many years down the road. That is something the approach I took to this position. Most positions recently have not been that way, but this position, I feel like it's we got a bigger move coming to the upside, is what I'm thinking. But again, the thesis still is, as things are really bad, things have to get better. But the market will pivot very soon, I believe, even though things could get bad. It really just depends on core and how that plays out. But nonetheless, I keep ranting. That's pretty much all we got. We are coming into, again, tomorrow. I think we can do a little bit of a running and then go into core and see where we're at. I think we land at the 3,900 tomorrow, waiting for core. But that's pretty much what I got. So manage risk. Take care out there, and I'll see you guys on the field.